Assalamualaikum and good evening to Dr. Normizan. So today I will present about my individual assignments, which is titled Trade War between United States and China. So my name is ALIA YAZID. My matric number is 830020. So first of all, I will talk about the introduction. International trade between nations is a significant influence in boosting living standards, creating employment and enabling customers to enjoy a broad range of commodities. Um, since the first civilization started trading, there has been international trade, but in recent years it has grown in importance as a larger portion of GDP has been allocated to export and import. So one of the repercussions of globalization on society in the 21st century was the enormous amount of global trade and foreign direct investment. This expanding international trade and direct investment FDI trends faced a significant challenge when Donald Trump, the President of the United States, started a trade war with China, which was the bulk of American corporations' offshore industrial activity. So, neither China nor the US gained any significant advantage from the trade conflict between the two nations. Regarding their economic strategies, both nations must exercise caution. Donald Trump, as a former US president, pledged to reduce the country's trade imbalance with China in 2016. It is perspectively predicted on unfair trade laws and practice in China, which include claim property transfer, intellectual property theft, and reduction or complete lack of market access for US business doing business there. So, following the impositions of tariff by the US on China, China was subject to a variety of restrictions on access to FDI for the investment, including a number of worries about the security and sophisticated technology goods of the US, as well as China claim unfair business practice. So both economies not benefited from this trade war in the end, and it even hurt the US and Chinese economies. I move to the theoretical principles about the tariff. So, one of the most well-known trade policy is the imposition of the tariff, which are charged based on the imported product. So, tariff are used by the government to increase revenue, protect certain sector of the economy, and increase the nation's economic independence. So, in the curve, so the effects of the tariff. So, tariff increase the cost of the product for importers while lowering them for exporters. Due to this pricing adjustment, customers in the importing nation will have to accept higher costs that are likely to reduce their spending. Because of the less demand, global price will decline. So the manufacturer lost money in the exporting nation while making money in the importing nation as they become more competitive in their own market. So the outcome is that the government imposed the proceed of the tariff rise. So tariff inevitably result in decreased commerce and welfare loss. So when imposing tariff, one must weigh the advantage of making a foreign competitors accept a lower price for the item in a specific market against local inefficiencies related to the manufacture and the consumer side linked with the higher tax. So one may argue that the home economies is improved if one can coexist with the other. Now I will talk about the implementations and the consequences. So first, the implementation that caused a trade war between United States and China. So early 2018, the US and key trading partners, including the Europe, Mexico, and China, started a trade war. So trade war are the situations over time in which a nation impose tariff restriction on imports in order to restrict each other commerce. So it takes effect when the US slaps duties on the import from certain of its key trade partners, such as washing machines, steel, solar panel, and aluminium. So China is especially impacted by this. So 35% tariff are imposed by the US on Chinese product worth US dollar 34 billion. Assumedly, China fired first with the 35% counter tariff on goods worth 34 billions. So, the trade war succeeded from December 2018 and April 2019. However, there were signs of the settlement discussion, but it then launched a second phase of trade war when US chose to increase the previous tax on Chinese import by 10% to 25% on May 10, 2019. The consequences of the trade war between the United States and China. So, due to the tariff policy, the amount of intermediate and finished items subject to the tariff grew dramatically in the US in 2018 and were distributed to enterprise and end consumer. So the supply chain of the economy suffered significant changes and the variety of the imported item decreased. In reality, the abrupt shortening of this chain has had a severe impact on many US manufacturing companies. So, Trump's first goal was to safeguard the welfare of the American industrial workers, but the trade conflict with China had a negative impact on them in many ways. So, moreover, it has made it more difficult for United States business to sell it rapidly developing region of China, where there is a high demand for US agricultural goods, including soybean. So, as a consequences, the US lost $8 billion in GDP in year 2018. So, due to a decline in the US demand, Chinese manufacturers are seeing a loss in the income from the selling of their product on a global scale. So, the trade war has caused the Chinese yuan to weaken and capital outflow in addition to China tariff retaliations against the US. So the disagreement sent to the Chinese stock market into the span. Although it's difficult to get accurate information on employment, it's believed that Chinese manufacturers have reached by lowering wage, investment and pricing. Particularly, it is the technology sector which has seen thousands of many people lost their job. So the whole globe has been impacted by this trade war. Next, I will continue with the analysis in the light of the economic theory uh, based on the implementations and the consequences. So the US may conservatively use its dominant market position at the cost of the international rival, as shown as by the example of the large countries imposing tariff. So import tariff and increasing the US economic self-sufficiency has advantage in principle. So the idea of the exchanging uh, higher import costs for domestic employment has some merit. It's helpful to see how many United States Midwest manufacturing have been abandoned and how many people are living in the poverty as a result of the China's action. So, however, power recruitment was one of the greatest economies of today's era. One suitably said, models are how you tell yourself what the story is, but you should always think of them as the being metaphors, guidance, and not truth. So, the US has suffered several negative effects as a result of the placing tariff on the Chinese import, harming both the domestic economy and that of the rest of the globe. When all things are considered, it seems that the cost exceeds the benefit when the US put tariff on other global giants such as China. They need to take into action or account the effect of the tariff retaliation, the result of which would bring the original issues back. So the outcome of the tariff implementation depends on various factors including market response and elasticity at the international and national level, which are highly difficult and dangerous to predict in the long run. So Is it probably not a good idea for the US to adopt an idealistic, patriotic perspective of putting America first at this moment? So, China may have an advantage in the manufacturing cycle, even if the US is highly strong in the technology sector. It is quite probable that both nations will gain if these two get along. Okay, so next I will talk about the analysis of trade war in terms of game theory. So first of all, I will choose the simple game, which is the prisoner dilemma game example. So from the table 1, the optimum cost of action of each players in the simulation of the prisoner dilemma game is to impose tariff, which leads to an Nash equilibrium in which neither party has a reason to depart, as shown in table 1 above. So both the United States and the China will gain from more commerce and higher payoff if they both uphold free trade. So if China does not implement tariff while the United States does, then there will be no impact on the American export. But there will be less demand for foreign product because of the higher price of those commodities. However, if both countries implement tariff, it will lead to a decrease in global commerce, which will then lead to a decrease in GDP and well-being. Next one, due to the simultaneous nature of the interaction, this has no use in the real life. A more realistic approach is the sequential game. That means the game keep repeated. So from this figure, which sequential gives example, it is always logical for China to choose a tariff in each sub-game in this game, supposing that this is the case. The United States must next decide on tariff to guarantee a payoff higher than zero. So as a result, TT is the game perfect Nash equilibrium. So now considering that there is a asymmetry in the strategy interaction of the information between the US and China, which allow the Chinese government to choose to act either aggressively or tactically. So when this happen, the process of the tariff retaliation will cause the amount of the competition in the domestic market to decrease. This lead to the decrease in each country consumer surplus but an increase in its producing surplus. However, the decline in profit margin offered to the local business in the foreign market as a result of the formation of the such as a trade war counter the growth in the producer surplus. As a result, each nation will see a decline in the total surplus, which will worsen the situation there. Therefore, this analysis highlights the negative impact on the imposition of the tariff. Lastly, for the conclusion, in conclusion, both nations have been negatively impacted by the US and Chinese trade war. In a big nation with a significant economy, tariff may pose a serious danger to a local populace according to the analysis based on the tariff theory. So even though trade agreements are important, they are not the only factor that influence the economy. Aspects like technology benefits, labor costs, and automation are also significant. So one may learn from the past that nation profit and become affluent move from the solid trade partnership. Furthermore, the analysis in the term of game theory, free trade does not result in the next equilibrium. However, the result of the sequential games that play more extensively shows US-China tariff war will give negative impact on GDP of the US economy. So that's all from me. Thank you.